live on OBS. However, I'm waiting for Restream.io to push the data to YouTube and Twitch, and that's going to take a bit. There's going to be a little bit of delay. Alright. So let's see. Sending data, sending data. Let's see. I'll give it like 5 minutes to start up. Alright, so Twitch and YouTube both say that they're online. I'm going to go in and hold down the fort. What is up in the U-Box, guys? This is TopHat Productions 115 coming at you with yet another video. We have 3 to 4 live guests with us who are currently preparing for the stream, and we will begin our main show momentarily. So please hang on, and we will be right back with you in just a few short moments. While you are waiting, please grab snacks, grab drinks, and just be ready because our first section is going to be a short blurb on recent tech news. We'll also be going into a bit of a Q&A session at the end of the stream, and the stream should go from now till about, I'd say, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. So just be ready for that. And if I'm in the mood and if you guys actually want to see me game, I'll see if I can't do, like, you know, maybe a little bit of video gaming or something fun afterward. Maybe a little bit of commentary. Maybe answer more questions. Just depends on what you guys are in the mood for and what I'm ready to do. So please stay tuned, and I'll go in and start posting the link to the live stream to various places across the internet. Oh yeah, and I'll talk about this in just a few short minutes as well. said GameStream chat didn't get updated with the link yet, even though I added in the Discord bot. The Discord bot is supposed to actually update Discord with links to the live stream, but looks like it's only working on the old archive server that I mentioned in the description. Alright. So I guess I'll just post the link manually. That's no issue, I can do that. I have to go find the Twitch link as well. That'll take a minute. Because I have to go to the site individually. While I'm waiting for this to load, from now on, a lot of the videos that I do will be coming in through Restream. And what will happen is Restream will then redistribute the video to both Twitch and YouTube so that you guys can watch pretty much wherever you want to, either Twitch or YouTube. And if you want me to show up on another platform, please feel free to say so in the comments. As long as it's available on Restream.io, I'm fair game. Aside from that, still working on the library part, LBRY. That I'll have to do after the fact, where I'll have to download the video and then upload it to library. But for the most part, I'm just kind of trying to grab these links here. Where is the social links? Yeah, I'll do that later. Where is the sharing? And okay, that works. And some steps up there. There we go. Not sure if I'll be able to share that on Twitter. Let's see, just now, yeah. We need to look for that. Close that. There we go. Pretty sure. There we go. Oh, I didn't want to know. Are you guys ready? You know what? We'll share that. Alright guys, let me know when you're ready, and I'll go on and pull up the first tech news link. On the top of the Restream.io, as I was mentioning, the reason why I'm using Restream.io is because of the fact that I don't want to leave the Twitch audience out, and I want to make sure that I'm reaching as many people as possible. And also, I think it would be better if I actually pushed content to everyone instead of just focusing on the YouTube channel at this point. The reason why I'm doing that is because of the fact that I still do want to do some gaming videos, and I'm thinking that gaming videos that I do would be... I'm thinking that people on both Twitch and YouTube could enjoy them. Because I'm not, by any means, anywhere near the best, but hey, watching a regular person fumble through a video game probably isn't the worst thing you could watch. Talking about fumbling through the games, though... Yeah. If there are any games that you want to see me play in the near future, as long as it's on this list here, it's fair game. So if you want to see me play a video game in the future, on YouTube, Twitch, or both, as long as it's on this short list right here, I should be able to actually download it and play it. There are other games that I have in my library as well, but this is the easy short list. It's all on Steam. Okay, we are just about ready. Demas, are you there? Favorite Dragon, are you there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
Ready to go? Here you are.
We're going to have some people who actually participate via the chat, so I'm going to go on and bring up the links for that soon enough. We're going to need at least one person monitoring the chat and replying and letting us know who shows up.
Okay.
I'm here.
Maybe Messiah Strawberry can do that. For all we know. Okay, so those are the links. Alright guys, are you ready? Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to go on and pull up the first link. The first one, oh, and this is our tech news, by the way, guys. We have 6 links to talk about. If you want us to go further into the tech news, say something in the chat so that we can actually stay longer on tech news. Otherwise, we'll move on after these 6 articles are done. Are you ready? First topic. Why Mozilla's layoffs and Google deal made me rethink my browser choice. Now, you guys both read the article, right?
Mostly.
I have.
Okay. The only reason why I ask is because of the fact that there are indeed a few longtime Firefox or Firefox Fork users who use the Firefox browser, and I really just want to know what they think of this. I haven't looked too far into it, but I see it as something that might be a little bit of interest. I'll just read like maybe the first few sentences. Last week, I did something I didn't think I'd do. I switched from Firefox web browser to Vivaldi. Now, keep in mind, I've actually heard about this browser before. I think, is that Chromium based? Let me look. Is Vivaldi Chromium based?
Yeah, I've heard of Vivaldi, but like I've never used it in my life, so.
I know
Just
one
have a quick
person
look
who
at it.
did use it, who actually I think still does use it. Yeah, Vivaldi, founded by Opera Software. I'm trying to see.
It looks similar to Opera to me.
I
Let me
mean,
look BY.
True, they were founded by Opera Software, but I'm trying to see. Is it based off of Chromium? I think it is. Ah, yeah, right there. It says built using Chromium from Chrome. Yeah, so it's Chromium based. A strange confluence of events brought this change about. So let me try to make sense of it for both you and me. To be quite honest, when he says that sentence, or should I say he or she, because I don't know who the author is. Yeah, Jack Wallen. I'm guessing that's a he. When they say that, it sounds more like they're giving their reasons for why they switched. So I'm just going to go on and read through their reasons here. Yeah, I'm just going to skip over. Yeah, this part right here, he says, now let's get to the point. I'm thinking that's where he starts listing his reasons. Firefox has always been a breath away from disappearing. It would never vanish completely because it is open source and forks happen. I'm guessing he's referring to forks like WaterFox, which I've used before, but that's aside from the point. But given that, as of July 2020, the Firefox market share was 4%, according to StatCounter, the writing has been on the wall for some time. According to the same graph, Vivaldi's market share doesn't even register unless you're Chrome, which held 65%. Okay, so some of these statements don't quite make sense to me. Firstly, he mentions the part about Firefox always having been a breath away from disappearing, but what about Linux's market share? Like Linux's consumer market share more so, like regular people and non-enterprise consumers using Linux. Would that same logic hold up if we compared Linux to Firefox? In terms of, I guess, platform user base size?
We haven't got something in mind to be fair, but like 4% in the market share is like
yeah, something.
Not...
I'm not a fan of Firefox myself, but a small market share, according to like a handful of studies, I mean, by this very logic, Linux should probably be in danger by now too, if we're just looking at desktop users. But
right, for like the US, for like the US point of view, yeah, for like having 1% is like almost next to death, but 4%.
If anything, Mozilla is probably doing better than Linux right now, and yet they're a breath away from disappearing. I mean, and do those numbers include forks like WaterFox and the rest?
That's good. I haven't thought of that.
Yeah, it looks like it's just Firefox. Oh.
Sorry. Chrome is, the reason Chrome is so popular is because Google had a massive push a while back with all the Chromebooks and everything else. And so people started using these like these brand new really cheap laptops and throwing Chrome's just everywhere now. You couldn't get away from it. So even with all these recent like backdoor privacy things, but oh no, Chrome had a backdoor, if you don't update, computers is kind of screwed. But it's still really prevalent, and it's really hard to compete with that. Like Firefox had its golden era like 2010ish, 2011, and then Chrome got introduced a couple years later, and then they're kind of screwed. So, but yeah, Linux I think is much better off than Mozilla, primarily because even though the group for it is small, they're so passionate about it because there's so much more freedom they have, and because it's open source and all that.
There's also the fact that even if they don't have a consumer level, I guess, compared regular consumers versus pro users versus enterprise users, even if they don't have a normal consumer base like you'd expect for most other software stacks, guess what? They have enterprise space. Red Hat says hi. Android says hi. Whether you like it or not, you're using Linux kernel on Android. So Linux as a platform is not going to die anytime soon. I mean, anyone who has an Android phone thinks you're helping to perpetuate Linux. You just don't know it. But on the other hand, I mean, numbers like this I don't really think accurately portray the whole entire picture because, I mean, For all we know, Firefox could be also used in other major projects that we just aren't paying attention to, similar to what Linux is now. Like, they are the underpinning of parts of enterprise and stuff like that. And also, where do you see Linux in a lot of Internet of Things applications as well? I think they're using like a lot of lightweight devices like Internet of Things and just many purposes. Like Linux is used on routers. Linux is practically everywhere at this point. So I'm thinking it would be pretty hard. You'd be pretty hard pressed to say that Linux is dying. And in addition to that, like, well, actually, has Firefox as a platform taken off though?
Not really, because again, Firefox is primarily just browser based. People would just use it as browser internet with this Linux. It's also devices. It's just OS. And it's not just an OS at this point. Basically, it's symbol for people because it's its own separate thing away from the monopolies of Microsoft and Apple. So it's its own open source thing, and it's just so much better than the other ones. So yeah, people are just really passionate about it. It takes away from the monopoly. I think the main two factors for why it's not used as much as one, it's more complicated to set up because it's different from the other monopolies, which are easy, but again, you don't have as much freedom. And then two, it's just not as mainstream. It hasn't been around for as long, it hasn't been pushed as much, and there's not somebody backing it. There's no like huge amount of money saying you should use it. It's just a bunch of geeks getting together going, wow, this is fun.
The way I see it, the percentage numbers by themselves aren't really a good point to look at just because of like the situation. Like if we're using straight up numbers, then as we've just mentioned, Linux should be technically dying according to what they're saying, but obviously software platforms don't just die by user-based numbers alone. It also depends on the number of integrations you have with other platforms. And I think Firefox did try to make a platform at some point. They had like Firefox Phone, Firefox OS, or something like that.
I heard about that one.
Now, where Firefox could be dying is the fact that their platform isn't catching on. But I don't think it's pure user-based numbers that are... I don't think pure user-based numbers is really a good metric for telling whether a platform is going to die. But that's enough of me spieling over that point. I just think that's a bad data point in general to use for saying, oh, this platform's dying. Oh, and in addition to that, if I remember correctly, where's something else they mentioned that I didn't quite sit well with? Unless you're Chrome, which held 65 point blah blah the market share. So is that for Chrome, like just the Google Chrome browser, or just Chromium in general? That's something else I'd like to know. I gotta see this. Chrome. I'd like to know how they're measuring these because I don't know if they're confusing Chrome with Chromium. I mean, they have Edge Legacy on here, but they don't have the new Microsoft Edge on here, do they?
That's Edge Legacy.
Yeah, Edge Legacy is based off of Edge HTML renderer and all that. And then they have IE. So they have Edge Legacy IE, but they don't have the new version of Edge, which is Chromium based.
Right.
But they have a few other Chromium based. Yeah. They have, I think, is UC browser a Chromium browser?
I know one browser that's Chromium based. Have you heard of Torch?
Yeah. Let me see, is UC browser.
There's like plenty of browsers that's based on Chromium.
Is UC browser Chromium based? Because a lot of the new browsers that have been coming out are just using Chromium as their base. Yeah, UC browser's Chromium based. So from what I'm seeing here, it looks like they have at least some ability to filter out different Chromium based browsers and they aren't confusing Chrome with Chromium, I'm guessing. But since I mentioned Edge Legacy, I'd also like to see some metrics for the new version of Microsoft Edge whenever they have that available.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a large influx of users though, considering everybody's always hated those browsers.
Sure, and also with the way that Microsoft treated things recently, they sat there and tried to shove the new version of Edge down everyone's throats, so that probably didn't help their adoption numbers. Okay.
Right, so yeah.
Okay,
so they're just trying to show off the Edge, and then like, and by the way, they're going to discontinue the Internet Explorer.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. Internet Explorer hasn't
Yeah.
received any major security updates, I think, in like over a year, right?
Right. And there's no point of using IE if you've got like the edge anyway.
Yeah. But here's something that I'm getting a little bit of a chuckle out of. Browser market share worldwide. One of the options that they mentioned.
First guy got a house.
Oh.
That was great. I came here and I got
Did someone
friendship,
open something?
You know, good
Or-
time, not a house. No. All right. We have
Someone just came in.
sledgehammer.
Is that
and
me?
a pickaxe.
Oh.
Fortnite. I need you to pick a weapon. I gotta go. Jack.
Oh my goodness. Okay. But here's one thing that made me laugh a little bit. Android. Is Android really a browser option?
Perhaps a bit generous.
What you mean?
Like sounds like internet and all that.
Is it like just the stock Android open source browser? But I thought that browser died a while ago and got replaced by Chrome. Am I trying to figure out what happened?
Oh, right, yeah. I remember it now. I remember it now.
That crappy Android open source browser that I used to always yeet whenever I got a new device.
Yeah, right, like, the one with the planet logo, isn't it?
Yeah, the Earth logo.
Yeah, the airflow, yeah, I've never used it. Definitely it's not stayed in the graph. Oh, wait, what? Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's an option on the
Android,
graph.
yeah.
Android. What
Yeah,
do they mean?
Android.
I have no idea. I'm guessing it's the Android open source browser. But that thing, I didn't even know that was still around. I thought they killed it and replaced it with Chrome.
Mine comes with Chrome. Only Chrome.
Or the web view change. Like,
I mean, they have UC
integrated
browser here,
browser.
so I'm thinking that they're separating out different Chromium-based browsers. They also have Edge Legacy. And if you have Edge Legacy, you also have to be ready to mention Edge Modern, which is Chromium-based. So I'm thinking that they're separating out their Chromium-based browsers if they're going through this trouble. Otherwise, they're doing a disservice to the people using the graph, I think.
Oh, never mind. The S8 comes with internet. That's basically the Android browser.
It's also possible that they don't have up-to-date data.
Possibly. To add insult to
I mean, how long has been new Chromium, new Edge been released? Like,
it's been around for at least a few months last I checked. People were like testing it out, like, I think earlier this year.
You made the new Edge.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Before
haven't
they-
tried it.
I would have tried it out myself, but during a bad Windows update, they sat there and tried to force it down my throat, and I just decided to eat that thing because I didn't need it.
I think you uninstalled it.
Yeah, it sat there, installed, and then automatically opened it and tried to slurp all my data into the browser without my permission. Didn't even wait. It was like, here you go, splash page. Try closing this, and I was like, okay, task manager, your tail gone.
Can you turn it off from like if you go to like Windows features on and off? Can you turn it off?
I have no idea. I think that they made it so you can't uninstall it without some command line stuff. I actually did an entire status update on it, and it was annoying.
I don't think you can uninstall it. There's no option for like the Internet Explorer 11, but no Edge.
There is, but you have to do it through command line, and it'll only take you back to the old version of. Oh, you're saying?
You can't uninstall it from you can't uninstall it easily.
Yeah, it's not that easy. The sad part is, instead of completely uninstalling it, it'll only replace it with the old version of Edge. Which, I mean, I didn't really hate the old version of Edge. I was actually excited waiting to see if Edge HTML is actually going to catch up. But then they sat there and switched over to Chromium, and I was like, well, what's the purpose of switching to this Chromium-based Edge if I already use Chromium myself? I don't need another Chromium browser in my system.
I think it's supposed to be targeted for like new users, so they don't have to install Chrome.
The problem is, though, I mean, both Chrome and Edge are just telemetry monsters at that point. And it's like, if I'm actually being honest about it, I don't want either of them. Which is why I've been slowly but surely switching away from Google Chrome. In fact, the only computer in the house I have Google Chrome on is my main workstation, because this thing's going to get nuked and decommissioned soon. So it doesn't even matter what I do with this thing. Like, it's going to be retired as soon as the new server comes up.
The last time I installed Windows, the new Edge didn't came with it. It was the old one. Is it the case still?
It still comes with Edge. I'm not sure when they'll... I think they might start pushing the new Edge with Windows now. With the way they've been going, I wouldn't be surprised if they just start pushing it with every single new Windows install. Oh, but here's the next point. To add insult to this injury, Mozilla Foundation Chairwoman Mitchell Baker announced significant changes to the corporation. What type of changes are we looking at here? In the end, Mozilla, blaming COVID-19, laid off approximately 250 employees and moved 60 others to different teams. That I can't really be upset at them about, because they could be losing money hands over fists for all I know, and I can't really judge their balance sheet. I can't judge them as a corporation because I don't know what they're going through in terms of financials and all that. The layoffs included, according to Baker, true Mozillians and professionals with high degrees of skill and expertise and commitment. So it sounds like they're hurting a little bit. But here's the kicker. Here's the part where I'm going to agree with the author of the article a little bit. Baker noted the restructuring of Mozilla includes focusing on Firefox users, investing in new products, centralizing marketing on both new products and core businesses, and reinvigorating the community. Now here's the kicker I mentioned. When I first read those goals, my initial reaction was, shouldn't those have been your goals all along? Right there. He's answering for the reader. Like, especially these few points right here. Focusing on Firefox users and reinvigorating the community. Firefox, as an open source browser, should be about its community and user base, last I checked. So the fact that they have to refocus on that kind of makes you wonder, like, what were they doing all this time with their Firefox VPN and other things that they're throwing in, and their bookmarks service and all of that, right? And then on top of that, like, let me go on and go a little bit further here. The problem with Mozilla lies in those goals because they are very similar to what nearly took Firefox out in the first place. Mozilla is trying to do too much. Yeah, I can kind of align with the author of this to a point. I don't think the main problem is that they're doing too much. I think the issue is that they might not be paying attention to their user base as much as they should. And if you pay attention to your user base, you can focus on what they want and need more than what... It seems more like they branched out without looking to see if their users actually wanted them to branch out in the way that they did. Guys, what do you think?
Well, I've got something in mind. Like, I need to have another look at this. Like, really, one article isn't enough for me at this point of time.
True. But just reading that part alone just makes me wonder what Mozilla was doing all this time. Because didn't they also, like, kick out Thunderbird, their email client, recently as well? Like,
yeah. They've got a Thunderbird. I use Thunderbird, actually, yeah.
Same here, I mean... But maybe
like, they're just trying to do a lot of stuff to the point that you can't achieve something that's really good in one particular area.
Are they trying to become a jack of all trades? Are they trying to just throw things at the wall and see what works? That's what went through my mind when I initially saw those points when they mentioned their structuring, and I just wasn't sure because something didn't add up. Favorite Dragon, did you have something to add?
Yeah, Mozilla's honestly done a better job than Chrome in my opinion, but they need to focus. There was when I came back to Firefox because I released a new browser called Quantum a couple years ago. Everyone was really confused trying to get back. There was so many bells and whistles. They could have just simplified it. You guys don't need to do all this. Just keep it simple. People don't want to have to go sort through 80,000 things just to access the internet. It would just be a couple of clicks and done.
To be quite honest, the first two Mozilla products I ever got introduced to was Mozilla Firefox and then Thunderbird. And I was like, well, I could try out Firefox. And that was me a couple years ago. And then just like over a year ago, I got into Thunderbird because I kind of wanted to have my own email server, but I also had to have an email client to access it. And I was like, hey, first thing that came to mind, Thunderbird, because I had heard about them years ago. So Firefox and Thunderbird, to me, I thought those were their core things until I started seeing, oh, they have a VPN and they have bookmark syncing and all these other things. And I was like, are those really core services? Did people actually want those? And are those open source? They are good things, but something tells me that there are other market competitors out there that can do it better than them, and that Mozilla probably shouldn't have gone for it.
Yeah, like if I'm not mistaken, like 5 years ago, right? Mozilla tried to publish the Firefox OS. It was supposed to replace Android, but like it failed because like they didn't have the developer power.
Yeah, and their attempt at an OS platform in general. That I don't know how to feel about that, because part of me wanted it to succeed so that we'd have another option, but at the same time, I mean, Windows Phone, anyone?
No.
My father had one, right? My father had one and he sold it. Everybody could not use it, including me. I was so dead confused.
I've only ever seen one or two Windows phones. Yeah, it's just you don't use those things ever. Like why they exist.
This Windows Phone will look like Windows 8, but like I don't like the user experience was so awkward. The UI was alright, but the UX was not. It was not good.
Yeah, I didn't mean to compare Firefox OS to Windows Mobile. My thing is, I actually thought Windows Mobile was okay. The one thing that I didn't like about Windows Mobile was the Metro design. It was like, to me, it felt like they hadn't actually polished it yet. Like, especially coming just off the tails of Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, I was still trying to figure out how to use that OS with some of its new UI elements. And having been thoroughly confused about how to get things done on Windows 8 because of how they moved things around and everything, trying to push this new design language without fully implementing it, going to Windows Phone was like making a complete transition to that new design language without ever being familiar with it, without a guide or tutorial on what to do and where to find things. And I don't think it worked out too well, to be quite honest. I mean, some people liked it. In fact, there's an entire respectful subreddit about it. And I urge you guys, you viewers, to go and look at it, because I think that Windows Mobile now is probably better than it's ever been. But it took them too long, too little, and too late to get there, with a third-party community kind of pushing it along. So, not to be mean.
Yeah, they couldn't compete at all. It was pointless.
In fact, I think I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if Windows Mobile went open source. What do you guys think?
Never happened because it's Microsoft. But
Yeah, it was Microsoft, but I think it would help like with all the development and stuff.
True, but
yeah.
I always thought that Windows Mobile had some potential. Something rubbed me off when I finally heard that it. At one point, it was. I'm having a hard time describing it because it was like mixed emotions. Before Windows Mobile was even announced to be dead, I could already see that it was stagnating, sadly. Right. And I was kind of looking at it like, okay, it's around, no one's saying anything, but we know it's dying. And then
I wasn't even aware it existed for a bit. Like, I don't remember any announcements for it. It's not like, oh, that's a thing. when is it gonna die?
It was like
it was never any doubt.
it was like
I mean, like-
Pepperidge Farm. We were there.
I mean, like they could have totally focused on the Windows 8 at that time instead of like creating another OS.
Before that, it was Windows RT, I think, or something like that. They had Windows RT, and before RT, it was Windows ME. I think it was like Windows ME, then RT, then Windows 8 and 10 mobile. But
Yeah,
they never quite hit the nail. They never quite hit the nail on the head. And the sad part is Windows 10 mobile and Windows 8 mobile was Windows 10 mobile especially was like the closest they ever got to hitting it. And with their new fluent design language, guess what? That could have worked on mobile. That was like if Metro had been completely overhauled and just done right from the beginning.
Yes.
But it came too late. And Windows Mobile floundered before it got the chance to even touch fluent design language, which is kind of sad. So that will never be a thing. Oh, and before I say anything, forgive me, free and open source community. Yes, I've said that Windows Mobile actually looked interesting, even though it's proprietary software. Don't hang me. Let's see here. This paragraph right here. Instead of being a company that creates a fantastic browser and an email client email client came up. Thunderbird, anyone. Mozilla wants to be everything to the web, like Google. It's a strategy that's in perfect parallel to the browser. Mozilla doesn't seem to remember that what Firefox does best is render web pages. And to that end, Mozilla could toss out half of the bells and whistles in Firefox to wind up a lean, secure, and productive web browser. Going back to what you mentioned, Favorite Dragon, I believe you actually mentioned something about them leaning down things and focusing on the core experience, right?
Yeah, just
Yeah, right.
simple. Make it quick. Make it easy. Make it not 80 bajillion things. Like, oh, you want to pocket history and settings? Like, no, leave me alone. Let me breathe.
Once Mozilla has figured that out, it can come up with creative means to finance the company. To be quite honest, I'm still a bit upset that they jettisoned off Thunderbird like that. What they probably should have done is kept Thunderbird, kept Firefox, and then from there worked on open source ways of syncing information across computers with maybe SyncThing or something like that, so that you could keep the Firefox platform on you no matter what, and be able to actually pick up and go where you left off on mobile, on desktop, and on wherever you use Firefox browser and Thunderbird, having your, well, maybe not your login credentials, but having your data sync across so that you can have a cohesive and, well, no, not cohesive, a consistent platform experience across devices. One that could possibly compete with Chrome without using proprietary servers and stuff like that. And instead they went after a VPN and other things that people didn't like, especially when they found out that it had closed source servers powering it half the time. I think people really got upset about that. What do you think?
Talking. Speaking of VPN, was Mozilla VPN? Wait, like.
I think they still have a VPN running, don't they?
Not widely available.
Not widely available yet?
Yeah, it's not available in Australia, so I've got to like join a waitlist. Yeah, join a waitlist.
Yeah, that's not the part of a user experience that we all want, Mozilla. To be quite honest, we could do without the VPN if you just make sure the browser works properly. We'll handle our own VPN costs. To be quite honest, I run my own VPN server, so I mean, and I don't run it to anonymize which country that I'm from. I use it to hide my data so that people aren't snooping in on my communications by making sure it's encrypted pretty much end to end.
Right. So apparently, Mozilla VPN is only available in the US, the UK, Canada, Singapore, Malaysia, and New Zealand, but not Australia. So just like
It's like
those
okay,
countries.
If that's the case, then what's to stop me from using something like VPN Gate? I mean, don't you have to pay for Mozilla's VPN?
Not sure.
Even if
For me, I just to fill a form to join the waitlist. That's it. I'm not sure if it's like a paid service or not.
I'll have to look into it because if it's paid, that's not going to help them out either. Because I'm about to bring up something that pretty much destroys any need to use their VPN. I think. Like how fast
Wait,
is their
it's a paid service. It should be like $5 a month.
What?
Yeah. Look up if yeah, that site. Scroll down just a bit and you'll see the price in there.
I'm not saying that the options I use are any better than them, but
they say that they are not logging anything. That's a bold claim.
for someone like me who doesn't like paying subscription costs, why shouldn't I pay for VPN Gate instead and just help their community instead? Especially Soft Ether. I mean, I've been using Soft Ether's tech for like over a year now and it works pretty well. I'm not saying that VPN Gate is better than them by any means, but if I don't want to pay for something and if I want maximum options when it comes to how I connect and which countries I show up from, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are a decent number of nations on this that I could use. Before I go any further, though, here is... Actually, I have to figure out how to post that here. Yep, here it is. VPN Gate. Next iteration of my VPN server will be on this list, most likely. I am working on that. Oh boy. And here comes the next big hit. Here comes Google. Within a few quick hours of laying off those employees, Mozilla signed a new search deal with Google. Talk about do no evil. To the tune of $400 to $450 million per year from now until 2023 to ensure that Google is the default search engine in Firefox. I mean, I would say use DuckDuckGo, but at the same time, they've screwed up recently too, haven't they?
I haven't heard about that.
I haven't
Yeah.
heard of that either.
The things that some people say about
What,
DuckDuckGo
is it?
now.
I mean, I really use Google, let alone Bing, but like, that go messing up. I don't know about that.
Yeah, didn't they get in trouble recently? Acquisition by who? Oh boy, they got acquired by who?
It did?
Will Apple monetize DuckDuckGo after acquisition by charging a subscription fee for privacy now?
Yeah, Apple's going through this whole. Apple's going through this whole thing where they're just preventing apps from existing unless they just do that purchases. Let them take 30%.
They're
It's kinda
trying to
wild.
prevent competition, I guess. Hold
Yeah.
on. I'm trying to figure out, did they actually get bought out by someone recently? Overview.
There's like one over there that says controversy. I don't know what's it about.
In July 2016, they officially announced an extension of their partnership with Yahoo that brought new features to all users of the search engine, including date filtering of results and additional site links. Also partners with Bing, Yandex, and Wikipedia to produce results or make use of features offered. The company also confirmed that it does not share user information with partner companies, as has always been its policy. DuckDuckGo in 2019 announced that all map and address-related search results, all searches would be powered by Apple Maps, both in desktop and mobile. And then Google added DuckDuckGo to the default search engine list in Chrome 7.3. Okay, so I don't really know why some people were ragging on it. I'm like trying to figure out why they're upset.
Is there a discussion on that on Reddit or something like that?
Something happened recently that made some people upset. I'm trying to figure out why.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Something from 2018, I think, but I don't even know if it's really worth looking at.
Okay.
I mean, like, one of the sites here is just like, what, 2-3 years ago? I'm not sure if it still applies this year.
I think it's like one of these. Browser fingerprinting or something like that. Ah, okay. Someone said that they're hosted by Amazon, and they're not a search engine but a meta search engine, which means that they have to go through another search engine to get their results. I mean, the first one about being subject to the Patriot Act, I mean, who isn't, though? Like, you have to literally pick which country that you're going to run out of just so that you aren't subject to the Patriot Act. And face the facts. How many of us are big enough where we can just decide where we're going to host something just so that we aren't subject to that? Like, how much money am I going to pay to co-locate a server just so that it's not subject to the Patriot Act when I live all the way here in the United States where it got built, the Patriot Act? Hosted by Amazon, though, I can see being a little bit of an issue. Worse than Google for collecting personal data. But at the same time, though, we don't really know how Amazon treats, I guess, their data center customers and whether or not they're snooping on Bitbucket customers and stuff like that using Amazon Web Services and their compute resources and all that. So we don't really know how much spying Amazon does on those customers, especially since they're paying customers. And not a search engine, but a meta search engine, uses normal search engines. Well, by that very logic, things like SERCs should also be under scrutiny. So that's not even really a good reason anyway. If we're going to talk about meta search engines badly, guess who also should be under fire? Pretty much anyone else that we use to try to get away from Google and all the big guys. Because a lot of them, the new search engines nowadays, are all meta search engines. I mean, who has the infrastructure to go crawl the web? Someone else already did the work for you. So some of these reasons are a little bit half-baked in my opinion. But I could be thinking about this incorrectly. So my question is, like, what is the new search deal? And why did they have to partner with Google? What did they need from Google that they couldn't get from someone else?
Well, they just running out of money. You know, get database or something to sort of use it.
Yeah, like, they're in trouble right now. They've got, like, some dilemmas going on.
If it's for ad money, I can see that. Even then, though, I mean, it's a deal with the devil either way.
I think what they want is to, like, I think what they want from, like, they want from Mozilla is to, like, use Google as a default search engine.
True. If they're hemorrhaging money like that, do they have a choice? Who else are they going to go to for an infusion of cash?
Right, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. So I can't really be upset with them. But at the same time, though, if they weren't hemorrhaging money, DuckDuckGo or SERCs would be yet another option they could use. But I can see technically why they did that. But it says here afterward, let me get this straight. Mozilla laid off 250 employees, citing COVID-related financial trouble, and then inks a 9-figure deal with Google. From my perspective, this doesn't add up. However, a goal of Mozilla is to eventually cut down its dependency on Google and instead rely on subscription-based services that could easily make one believe Mozilla has a long-term plan in place that puts the company on the road to self-sufficiency. How? What subscription-based service can Mozilla develop that will help cover the cash the company receives from Google? A VPN? Is Mozilla planning on charging to... Is Mozilla planning on charging to the Firefox sync? Do they mean charging to access Firefox sync as a service? Maybe that's what they meant. Are there other ventures Mozilla plans to acquire? Mozilla is in a difficult situation. It can't charge for Firefox because every web browser in the market is free. In fact, we've reached the point where the masses are willing to pay for software as they are for books and music. In other words, everyone wants something for free, so when Mozilla rolls out a service with an associated cost, the masses will turn to a free service. I mean, that is understandable. However, there are some things I have to wonder, did Mozilla actually like check with their users before starting the VPN or any of the paid services that they made? Did they go like, hey guys, what do you want to see in the future? Or did they just make it and then hope that someone buy it? My thing is, I'd like to know the consensus of most Firefox users when it comes to the Firefox VPN and other paid services that are popping up now. Did Firefox users actually want that, or is it just another way that they needed to make cash?
To be fair, I haven't heard like about Mozilla doing any service to the users.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this one topic here. I mean, there was a good amount to talk about, and I wish we could talk about it more. It's already like 6 p.m. though, so we should probably move to the next topic.
Yeah.
Next topic. New P2P botnet infects SSH servers all over the world. Botnet is hard to detect, have no centralized control server, harder to take down. Now, botnets, that's interesting. I used to actually talk with someone on Discord who was very interested in networking and botnets in general. And bless their soul, I think this would definitely be of interest to them. However, we aren't talking anymore. So we're going to go in and do this and talk about it from just a general standpoint. So did you guys read about this article? Oh, hold up.
Yeah, more ransomware, joy, fun. WannaCry 2.0, yes.
Oh, you were saying? Let's see. It says it's a peer-to-peer botnet. Researchers have found what they believe is a previously undiscovered botnet that uses unusually advanced measures to covertly target millions of servers around the world. Uses proprietary software written from scratch. Okay, everyone's on mute right now. So I'll go in and talk about this by just reading through parts of it and then giving my 2-bit opinions on it. The botnet uses proprietary software. What was intriguing about this campaign was that, at first sight, there is no apparent command and control server being connected to. Gardacore Labs researcher, okay, I'm not going to pronounce the name correctly, so I'd rather not do that, wrote, it was shortly after the beginning of research when we understood no CNC existed in the first place. The botnet, which Gardacore Labs researchers have named Fritz Frog, has a host of their own advanced features, including in-memory payloads that never touch the disks of infected servers, at least 20 versions of the software binary since January, so a lot of updates pushed for it. A sole focus on infecting secure shell or SSH servers that network administrators use to manage machines, the ability to backdoor infected servers, a list of login credential combinations used to suss out weak login passwords that's more extensive than those in previous seen botnets. Okay. Put that all together, and taken together, the attributes indicate an above-average operator who has invested considerable resources to build a botnet that's effective, difficult to detect, and resilient to takedowns. The new codebase, combined with rapidly evolving versions and payloads that run only in memory, make it hard for antivirus and other endpoint protection to detect the malware. I can definitely see that being an issue in enterprise environments. Hang on, guys. Alright. So I'm just going to be hosting for a little bit. just doing quick summaries of each article and then letting you guys chat about it in the chat here. Looks like we got our first notification. Oh, never mind. Do we have any people chatting right now? Let me check. Before I go any further, let me go on and copy this URL to the browser plugin of the encoding software open in the browser. Yes. And see, and there. I think we have a chat plugin here. Let me go and pull that up. We indeed have a restream chat. So I'm just going to go in and share that. Before I go any further.
So, I'm not sure what this article refers to as servers, but I'm assuming they're like web servers or like advanced, like powerful.
Oh, void pointer, you're here.
Yes, but I'm not sure if I can talk that loudly. So
I understand. I'll just turn you up here.
yeah, it's so the thing is about this article, like this is to be expected. Like, I mean, the computer security is really hard, and it's because of the design of computers. Like, by design, insecure.
Well, yeah, since computers are made by imperfect beings, so we can't expect perfect. We can't expect a perfect design. But it is definitely interesting. Like, the two things that are probably flourishing the most right now are probably botnets and ransomware. But I could be wrong. From all the headlines that I've been seeing that are being thrown at me by Google right now. So already right here I'm admitting there could be some bias in the articles that are being thrown to me. I'm seeing a lot of ransomware and a lot of botnet news just recently, like within like the last few weeks at least. And ransomware has just been recurring for like over a month now. So I know at least ransomware is becoming a big problem for many businesses. And as I mentioned before, it's even gotten to the fact where like now in some cases I think some businesses are taking it kind of as just like an accepted cost and overhead, like, oh, we're possibly just going to get hit by a ransomware attack no matter what we do. And they're kind of taking it as like a normal cost of like we're expecting to be hit by something instead of taking it as an extraordinary event. When you see someone change their outlook and their approach to certain risks, it's kind of a sign of the change in environment and also a change in times. Because getting hacked wasn't always a normal thing that you just you didn't financially plan for that. You had, if you were a responsible business, you had backups in place, you had redundant systems standing by, and if you played your cards smart, hopefully the ransomware didn't completely wipe you out. Of course, I mean, it doesn't always work perfectly, but it wasn't.
I also find it really funny that like imagine like jailbreaking iPhones and stuff. Anything that's executed is like being checked, that it's verified, like signed, and it's really hard to like crack it or something like that. But when it comes to these type of things, it's like just poof, like just happens, like. So I found that interesting.
My thing is, when I first heard that this thing was targeting secure shell servers, I was like, oh man, okay, that could be a little bit of an issue because I wanted to run a secure shell server for myself recently, and I was like wondering, okay, what did they exploit? But then when I saw that they were talking about like common passwords and stuff like that, so I'm wondering if they're targeting. My thing is, are they targeting servers that haven't been quite set up properly, where people just used default passwords and just left it the same, or are they actually using an exploit here? And from what it says here,
and that's the thing with secure by default. Like everything should be secure by default. The user don't have to change the configuration to make it secure.
true, but it can also be more of a hassle in the long run. I mean, looking at the way that Windows Defender is right now, for example, they have a ton of ways that you can actually customize that and harden it to the point where it can be ready for enterprise deployment at like a moment's notice now. And I applaud Microsoft for doing that, because I'm actually quite happy to see that the default security tools that come with Windows are finally becoming up to snuff. I like that, because that means that's less software that I have to install via third party, and less things I have to consider in terms of, oh, do I have to go pay for like antivirus now with my next computer? Are things getting bad enough where I'm going to have to actually start thinking about extra costs? Well, no, not with Windows Defender if I configure it properly. But at the same time, though, if they configure it for full bore security and like just turn on everything by default out of the box, just how many false positives am I going to run into, and how much trouble am I going to have installing third-party software? My thing is, some of the applications I install are considered to be a little bit questionable, but only because of the fact that anti-malware and antivirus software might mark it off as something that could be bad, even though really it could be anti-telemetry software. Blackbird and what was the other one that I was using before Blackbird? They're both anti-telemetry software. They modify host files and stuff like that to sit there and try to block out telemetry communications, so that the computer can't communicate with certain hosts and domain names. But due to the fact that it's modifying host files, guess what? Windows Defender sits there and marks it off and goes like, hey, the host file's been changed. This is bad. And it's like, no, I've already put in a little bit of a anti-positive mark. I've already put in like a marker saying that this is a false positive at least once, but every so often it's going to sit there and go after it again, even though I said this is a false positive. So I can imagine that being cranked up to 10 and just being a complete and utter annoyance for regular Windows users who aren't a part of the enterprise environment. For a heavily managed device, like maybe Windows 10S, or at least what Windows 10S was supposed to be, I could see that being a thing. But at the same time, though, devices that used to run Windows 10S, I think Windows 10S ran into issues when people started wondering if they were just going to start getting Windows 10S devices out of the box and just like losing control over their devices. So in my opinion, a fully hardened Windows 10 Defender suite is nice, but having everything turned on would probably be a bad idea. And its best environment would have been if Windows 10S hadn't caused so much confusion, or S mode hadn't caused so much confusion and made people wonder if they were going to lose control over their devices to a managed platform provider without any question, without any input from the users paying hundreds of dollars for these devices that they're buying in the first place. So if Microsoft hadn't flubbed Windows 10S and hadn't made people so concerned about it, they could have held out until now and pretty much had Windows 10S ready for instant integration with a fully hardened Windows Defender suite. And next thing you know, you can push that to enterprises and schools and go like, hey, this is ready for your environment. But instead, guess what? Windows 10S unfortunately has a black mark on its track record because they just didn't communicate it right, I think.
Yeah. Like, you're only limited to the Windows store, so that's the like when it was coming out, I saw that as a way of like promoting their store. So I never actually thought about the security of. That's interesting.
To be quite honest, Microsoft's store was never really a good reason for Windows 10S. Windows 10S is a fully managed platform option, in my opinion, or at least it is a managed platform option, and I think that they should have just presented Windows 10s as that, as an option for people who want a fully managed and secure platform, and they should have just cut out the Microsoft Store crap from the beginning because it just didn't make sense. And pretty much all major app stores, especially Android, well, not Android, especially in Google's Play Store and also in Microsoft's Windows Store until at least just this recently, there have always been malicious apps that have been showing up there. And I never really saw the store as a I never saw app stores as a security point. It's just not the case, because if someone can get in there and put malicious software on the app store, then guess what? Security compromised. You're thinking that you can trust the apps on that store because it's provided through an official means, when in all actuality, that app got past their vetting. And in addition to that, I have to wonder, should people really even be using the Windows Store in a fully managed environment like enterprise or schools? Probably not. The apps that the user base needs in that case should be installed upon deployment time, probably, or before deployment time, like by IT admins and people in charge, so that people aren't installing that stuff like as they need it. It's like they're spending time installing software and just instead of just doing what they need to. No, bad idea. That stuff should just already be on the computers. Like back in my high school, they didn't even have the Windows Store enabled, I think. They just had everything that you needed on the computers, and if you needed to install something, well, tough luck. Usually it didn't work. There was always the share drive, but even then the share drive was only like able to hold like really small portable apps, and like the applications had like limited permissions and stuff like that, so it couldn't really run amok and crap up on things, if I remember correctly. For the most part, they set up things decently at least. But yeah, I never saw the Windows Store as a good point for security, and then when they mentioned it, it was like, okay, marketing. Marketing team kicked in. But yeah, I'm gonna go on and back on top here. This last point where it says a list of login credential combinations used to suss out weak login passwords.
That's like webcams and like no webcams, IP cameras and other IoT stuff.
Did they use
probably?
Did they have like a whole entire list of default passwords? Because if so, that's something strikes me as that is a configuration issue or error on the part of the IT admin if they're able to get you with weak passwords or default passwords.
I don't think so. I think that's it's the fault of like the manufacturer of those IoT devices or that service, because usually they don't allow you to change it. Like you probably don't even know that it's there, and it's an issue.
I mean, for devices like routers and well, I mean, not just routers, but other ones that are internet connected, some of them do let you change the password. But for those that don't, that could be an issue. And to be quite honest, I would be inclined to avoid devices that don't let you change certain security parameters. Especially with the way things are nowadays, not being able to actually secure your devices adequately. Like, for example, if I remember, actually no, never mind. I can't even talk about these devices because I don't use them often. But I was going to bring up a few web accounts I used to have. I think I used to have a Disqus account, right? DISQUS. I used to have an account with them, and one of the things that always annoyed me was the fact that someone was always able to get into my account no matter how many times I changed my password. And then when I finally looked into it, I found out that not only did they not have 2FA, but they also didn't have any way of telling like who logged into my account last or from where, what IP addresses had come in, and just changed things. So I logged in one day, like I think a year or two ago, and found out that someone had posted some just raunchy crap on my profile, and I was like, who did this and why? And then, like, when I found out pretty much that they have crappy security or no account security whatsoever for their users, I just decided to up and leave because I just wasn't having that at that point. But I'm wondering if a similar issue like that exists in a lot of not only web services but also internet connected devices, where they don't provide enough security measures for their users, like they don't provide 2FA, or they don't allow you to set a long enough password, or they don't even allow you to change the password, as you just mentioned. Because if that is a major issue, as you just brought up, that could have some serious implications in the future, and I could see that generation of devices dying off pretty quick, especially if security concerns end up, if that becomes a big enough issue, I could see those devices just being kind of kicked off the market. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, but think about this. You are a company that, like, I don't know, does like build some IoT device, and like, how much of that I can talk? Oh my god. What word I'm looking for? How much money are you going to put in for the security? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you are making some kind of profit, and like the developers, and if they don't care, they don't care. That has some extra cost to make it like secure by default. Like, by secure by default, I actually meant that you should be able to change stuff, and so that's what I actually meant when I said, when I first brought up that.
Part of my concern also is the fact that if that is the case where they just don't set up their security properly, people are just kind of letting these devices in onto their network, like, without even thinking about it, and the FBI's even brought up recently. So, I mean, as I'm always taught to believe, if the FBI or NSA is giving you a warning about security, they've probably already used it on people before. And not only that, but they're also kind of announcing this to you late because it's probably been around for years, right? I mean, they probably use like half the backdoors that they mentioned. But something that gets me is not only do regular people just allow these insecure IoT devices onto their networks, but they allow them without even putting any security measures in place outside of it. Like, for example, I mean, Bitdefender has, I think, like their Bitdefender box, I think. Yeah, their Bitdefender box. And I'm sure that Norton has their own, I guess, version of that too. But pretty much security nodes that are supposed to secure your network so that your IoT devices, I guess, aren't as much of a threat. But at the same time, though, most people probably aren't using those. Most people probably aren't even considering the threat, haven't even gotten those for their house, and they're just using these devices on their raw network with little to no hardening whatsoever.
Yeah, also this, like, this botnet article, like, it's always the same thing. Like, just when it comes down to the issue, it's just bad security. Doesn't matter what features does the botnet have. Like, it's decentralized, good for the botnet authors, I guess. Like, but yeah, it comes down to just not caring about it, as you said.
I can definitely
like, these kinds of things should be enforced. I think, like, there should be law that enforces security about, like, IoT devices and software.
Aside from that, though, I can at least feel for IT admins a little bit, because some of this stuff they can't exactly prevent. Like, they can do all that they try to and need to, and they can put out like maximum effort to try and keep things like this from happening. But if one user on their network just does something really stupid, I mean, it's over. Like, all that hard work that the IT admins and security people put into it, like, could be brought down by one person if they do something on their own computer. So,
and it's not uncommon for the user to do that. Like,
so yeah, I mean,
how hard is it to like, I don't know, like plug in a USB or something like that?
An infected USB with a
So-
botnet.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Like how hard is it?
Not very, because people will just click on anything they see nowadays. But it says here that the vector for this botnet was supposed to be secure shell, right? Main focus on infecting secure shell. So, in that case, but authentication for secure shell, you have password, right? But do they even usually recommend using that? I don't think they recommend using password authentication. There's password authentication. There's key-based authentication where you have to
Public
provide
key,
like a
yeah.
key. But yeah, I think most people are supposed to be using like keys for authentication now, aren't they?
Yeah, you just plug your public key to the machine that you want to connect, and you just accept.
Yeah. So when they say password, what do they mean exactly? Are they saying like SSH account passwords, or because of
The wording is a bit off, I think, because SSH is just a protocol for basically getting a shell.
true,
so-
but what do they mean by passwords though? Like password to what? Weak login passwords. Is it an SSH login? Because let me see here. Security levels of passwords compared to SSH keys. Unlike passwords, your private key isn't set to the server, so even if a malicious actor did hack into the server, still can't access your account. Connection can only come from the computer where the private key resides. So I'm looking at an article from all the way back in 2014, and someone's already saying why using SSH key is more secure than using passwords. So it looks like it's common knowledge by now that we aren't supposed to be using password authentication for SSH, but instead keys. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, but SSH, do they mean like, what's so
And this article just focuses on the features of the botnet. I don't see any mention of the attack vector.
Once installed, malicious payload can execute 30 commands, including scripts.
Oh,
It says once installed. How does it install itself, though? Reader
wait,
comments. Can you enlighten us?
is it SSH passwords or a exploits in the SSH client or whatever?
That's what I asked, but its sole focus is on infecting secure shell servers, ability to backdoor infected servers, so this is for accessing already infected servers, I guess, unless I'm reading that wrong, and a list of login credential combinations. So is that just brute force? Because if they're just getting in through brute force, that looks pretty bad. That's the thing. As I mentioned earlier, if it's just getting in through brute force or dictionary attack, that looks bad on the IT guy, because that is controlled completely by them. And also password policy and stuff like that. So I don't really know what to think, because I don't know if I don't even think I have enough information from this article to judge how bad this is.
Yeah, at the bottom of the article it says the takeaway from Wednesday's findings is that administrators who don't protect SSH servers with both a strong password and a cryptographic certificate may already be infected with malware that's hardware. Yeah, it's like if you don't have security, you are not secure. Like, okay. Also, they mention.
So the onus is on the IT guy in this case.
Also, since this is decentralized, are they even able to know how this is like spread?
I'm pretty sure that they have some way of accessing these things. I mean,
Like
if
you
you're running a
mentioned
botnet, you would probably
brute
make sure
force
you have a way to.
and or password lists.
They probably are keeping that. Yeah, but my bet is whoever's deploying the botnet probably more than definitely has a way of accessing all the computers that they've hacked into. I mean, why wouldn't they? For all I know, they could be mining Bitcoin with the botnet.
Doesn't matter.
Nope.
Also, they mentioned targeted tens of millions of IP addresses belonging to government agencies, banks, telecom companies, and universities.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, probably.
let me check.
I'm not saying that I like it, but I would like to see a list of who the targets were, because depending on who the targets were, I'm like wondering, like, were they like targeting specific organizations for a specific reason?
If that's the case, then
That's part of what I'm thinking about. It's like who were they targeting and why? Was it just a money grab, or were they going for more, or were they targeting specific organizations that they wanted information from, or because I'll never know. Like maybe years later, when they finally figure out who did it and why, they'll go like, oh, they targeted these specific organizations because of this, or maybe oh, they just did it because they wanted money and they picked out certain organizations who they thought had bad security, or they picked out organizations who they had an insider with, or whoever, whatever. But we'll never know, probably. Unless a news article comes out.
also if that's the case, there's nothing that the target can do other than like enforcing more security.
In other words,
And
having
even
better
then, it can
passwords.
still, yeah.
Okay, now here's the next article, and maybe the last one, seeing that it's already about to be 7 p.m. Intel moving to
Yes.
chiplets.
I
Client
said I won't be
2.0.
here for long, but yeah. Too bad.
Since Favorite Dragon isn't here right now, what I'll probably do is I might like pause the live stream and then come back when we can talk about MageBending again. But only after we actually talk about this article. And how long is this article? I'm hoping it's not like multiple pages. Oh, it's like a nice short blurb, so we can probably talk through all of it. This article here reminds me slightly of what AMD did with their own chips recently. Like, only thing is AMD like sat there and came in and did it first. Like, if we're talking about the range of years from like 2016 to 2020, the last 4 years, guess who did it first? AMD did chiplets first, modular first, and then Intel. Out of the big processor market players, that is. Intel moving to chiplets. Client 2.0 for 7 nanometer. One of the more esoteric elements of Intel's Architecture Day 2020 came near the very end, where Intel spent a few minutes discussing what it believes is the future of some of its products. I cannot pronounce that name. VP and CTO of Intel's Client Computing Group laid out a vision about the future of its client products and the 2024 plus future time frame. Centered around Intel's 7 plus manufacturing process, the goal was to enable Client 2.0, a new way to deliver and enable immersive experiences through a more optimized silicon development strategy. And this paragraph right here kind of describes how it's not a new concept, blah, blah, blah. You can probably read that if you want to. Lots of stream if you want. Long story short, they need a really fast interconnect, and we don't know what interconnect that they're going to use right now for connecting either individual dies or individual IPs together. They're moving away from monolithic, which kind of reminds me is that I think it's of Alder Lake. I think Alder Lake was supposed to be their first move into it. Yeah, they're on hybrid architecture. They have Alder Lake, and then there was like one other thing that they mentioned, Foveros. Intel Foveros. So let's pull up this one first. So firstly, we have Foveros. Foveros is a high-performance, three-dimensional integrated circuit 3D IC face-to-face based packaging tech used by, designed by Intel. There's a lot to read through here, but if any of you are interested, what I could do is throw in a link to this in the description so that you can read over it later. And here we go. And Intel's first Foveros-based product is Lakefield. And Alder Lake is... Okay, so this is going to be fun keeping separate, right? So Foveros is their three-dimensional IC packaging tech, right? This is for like 3D stacking, their ARM tech, and IPs. And it's being used in Lakefield, keeping that separate. Over here, we have something separate from Foveros and Lakefield, Alder Lake. Alder Lake is Intel's codename for 12th gen products using their hybrid architecture, which uses Gracemont little cores and Golden Cove big cores. So two different things here. So one is a packaging, like a 3D packaging technology. The other is a hybrid architecture. And then they have this Client 2.0 thing coming out. They're heterogeneous mix and match design. So I can see kind of a monster coming out of this here. They have an interposer packaging technology. They have a hybrid architecture waiting to be used. They have this Client 2.0 coming out as well. And they also have their high-performance GPUs being designed as we speak. Intel XE, right? Is there going to be like a future product in the next 4 years where they just bring all this together into one chip design? I'm seeing like a bunch of different products coming out, like a different product lines and everything. But I'm wondering, are they going to put all this tech together and pretty much try to make like the ultimate hybrid stacked device thing, like something that takes like tech from Intel Foveros Lakefield and also Alder Lake and Client 2.0 and just combines into like pretty much the next, I guess, Intel Core product line. And also, what the heck is Meteor Lake? These names, they're killing me. But anyway.
Yeah.
It is time to read on. Chiplets are not new. The goal here is to mix and match which process nodes work best for different parts of the chip. And Intel seems set to realize this vision, starting with its 7nm platform. At Architecture Day, Brześć, I'm saying that wrong probably. Brześć Chapati showed
You
this.
can always use text-to-speech.
Oh no. Microsoft Sam, anyone? You remember Microsoft
I have
Sam?
no idea. No idea what it is.
As soon as you mentioned that, I thought of Microsoft Sam, and then that brought me back to a YouTube web show called RB and the Chief. Oh no. Is anyone in the chat now?
I mean, like, people always complain about not being able to read names, but instead of complaining, you can just use text-to-speech. Seems more efficient.
Thing is, though, I don't want to like butcher their name on a live stream. I feel bad. I'm gonna try my hardest at least because I'm gonna get it better than a computer half the time until AI comes out. And by then, I won't have a job because AI will kick me out of my job. So on the left is a typical monolithic chip design with everything it requires integrated in. For Intel's leading edge products, these take 3 to 4 years to develop, and bugs are found in silicon by both Intel and their partners. Oh yeah, Intel initially and Intel's partners later on, as they can ramp up silicon on time by a few orders of magnitude. In the middle is a basic chiplet layout, similar to the slide from 2017, where different functions of the die are split into their own modules. Assuming a consistent interconnect, there are some reuse silicon elements, such as AMD using the same core compute dies in client and server. For some semiconductor companies, except Intel, this is where we are. On the right is actually on that same topic. Before we move over, I remember Core Techs on YouTube recently mentioning Hopper, and I think Hopper's supposed to use like a modular design as well, isn't it? Like NVIDIA's Hopper? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm like completely scatterbrained here. NVIDIA is rumored to be exploring a multi-chip module design. I'll keep it short. Yeah, this is supposed to be the one that will succeed Ampere. And it's going to be NVIDIA. It's supposedly going to be NVIDIA's first generation GPUs that use multi-chip modules. So if you guys want me to put links to that in the description as well, just let me know, and I'll put that in the description. But that's all for this, I guess, excursion. But I'll get back to the article now. It looks as though all these companies are going for like a multi-chip design of some sort, whether it be chiplets or something else. They're going more modular for silicon use, I guess, which is kind of cool.
That's a way of scaling, I guess.
On the right is where Intel sees its future. Instead of having a single digit number of chiplets in the product, it envisions a world where each IP can be split into multiple chiplets for enabling products to be built with different configurations of what works for the market. And I just lost where I was in the article. Oh yeah, in this instance, a chiplet might be a PCIe 4.0 x16 link. If the product needs more, it simply adds more of these chiplets. So partially for scalability, I guess. Same with memory channels, cores, media accelerators, AI accelerators, ray tracing engines, crypto accelerators, graphics, or even as far down as SRAM and caching blocks. The idea is that each IP can be split and then scaled. This means that the chiplets are tiny, can be built relatively quickly, and bugs should be ironed out very quickly. I actually have to say I kind of like this approach, but I'm hoping that
instead of having a general purpose to everything thing, they have small but specialized modules.
They're taking the processor as we know it and breaking it down into its component units.
Isn't that the case, like the current status quo?
I am not quite sure. I'm not the smartest person, but
like for example, to be quite honest, I don't know what this chip actually is. Like, what is the purpose of this? It doesn't target like personal computers or like enterprise server stuff or mobile phones, like mobile phones, Intel.
I mean, Intel was going for mobile phones years ago, but that got killed off.
Yeah, I did my sample.
But yeah, this could probably apply to pretty much everything. This could apply to regular consumers and also enterprise, from what I see here.
I'm not too inclined with this topic, but like as far as I know, mobile phones have accelerated encoding chips and stuff. So this is exciting. I'm really excited.
To be quite honest, like when Intel first mentioned their big little approach, I always was wondering like how that was gonna go. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, their first product for it came out recently too. I think Linus Tech Tips, I'm trying to remember, it wasn't Tech Quickie. It may have been Linus Tech Tips or some other related channel. They did like a quick look at like one of the first devices to actually use a is it Intel? You see, there's like too many names to keep up with here. I think it's using Lakefield, but I'm not sure. I think LTT or a related channel did a quick look or an actual review on a Lakefield based product recently, using like the big little chip architecture, and it had like 5 cores, I think, like 4 little cores, like low power cores, and 1 big core. And the main takeaway was that they didn't have to worry about running Photoshop on ARM, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, they have a bit of a point. We're coming out with all these ARM-based devices, but only, in my opinion, the only company who is actually ready for the ARM transition so far is Apple. Rosetta 2, anyone? I'm not going to go too far into that because there's like a whole bunch of stuff to talk about with translation layers and all that stuff. And Apple's already done their transition from one architecture to another at least twice now. They transitioned from Power all the way to x86 Intel, and now they're transitioning from x86 Intel over to ARM. So I don't really see them screwing this up because they've got enough experience under their belt where they can pull this off. Microsoft, on the other hand, I have no idea how they're going to do it. But
and users don't have care. It's great.
Someone just asked if I can play NetHack. No, I do.
No. I don't even know how to play that game.
I mean, I could probably learn it, but I mean, yeah, I have some 3D games I want to play. If anything, I want to see a 3D version of NetHack, where it can like change perspectives on the fly, top down or in the environment. But that's not going to happen. But yeah, that's enough of me yakking about that part. I'm going to skip down to the important stuff. As always, there is some yes, GLMD Grillson. I know exactly who asks that. You've been in our past live streams. But I want to go in and finish off this tech news part real fast. How many more articles do we have? We aren't even going to talk about the 12-pin adapter because there's already been enough rumors and talk about that. The acquisition of ARM, the possible acquisition of ARM by NVIDIA is more interesting to me. As always, there is some trade-off between triplet size and complexity of actually putting them together in a multi-die arrangement. Any communications between the Any communications between chiplets cost more than a monolithic interpretation, and usually offers higher latency. Thermals also have to be managed, and so sometimes those chiplets are limited by what thermal properties are available. Multi-die arrangements also cause headaches for mobile devices where Z-height is critical. However, the benefits afforded from using the right process at the right time for the right product are big, as it helps provide both performance and power at best possible cost. It also gives the opportunity to bring in third-party IP quickly if something amazing hits the scene. The only downside here is that Intel hasn't spoken much about the glue that binds it all together, and chiplet strategies rely on complex high-speed interconnect protocols, custom or otherwise. Yeah, I mentioned that a short while ago, that without knowing what interconnect is going to be there, it's going to be pretty tough to actually get this up and off the ground. So hopefully, what I'm hoping is that this doesn't die in the planning phases and that this actually makes it into a product. And on a separate note, didn't Intel give away their modem business recently? I think they did, but I might be wrong.
My internet is choking, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Intel.
internet is choking.
Oh, my bad. That might be me. I'll pull up like 2 links here and just pick the best article. Intel Mobile Communications. But yeah, that's one thing. As soon as this came up, that was actually one of the things that I thought about. Intel sold off a few of its divisions, like one of which being their modem business. And imagine an Intel 5G or 4G modem on this new design here, this multi-chip design. That could have been a thing if they didn't get forced to sell off the modem business. So another missed opportunity, unfortunately. I'm going to skip down to one of the last points here, though. Intel has stated that they're inventing new packaging technologies and new levels of connectivity to act between the silicon. There's no disclosure on the protocols at this time. However, Intel acknowledges that to get to this level of skill, it will have to go beyond what the company has today, and that will require creating standards and innovation in this area. So in other words, I'm guessing Alder Lake or Foveros won't be used in this case. Is Foveros simply not ready for this task of packaging this type of technology? Oh, Void Point, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So I'm guessing we probably won't see a combination of Intel Foveros, though, then with this, if they're saying that their current tech isn't up to snuff. Or maybe a new version of Intel Foveros will come along to fix it. And the last part, there's also the developer market, which might be used to a more homogeneous implementation of resources in any given product without careful planning and relevant coding. There is a potential for certain chiplet configurations to fall over if the developer was expecting a certain ratio of compute to graphics, for example. This isn't something that one API could easily fix. These are all issues that Intel will have to address, although they will have a few years until this comes to fruition. We were told that the internal name is Client 2.0, although that will likely have more marketing dressing added as Intel starts talking about it more in detail. And our final topic for today. We will look up Vulture in just a few minutes, GLMG Grilson, in just a few minutes. We have NVIDIA's potential ARM acquisition. Now, we're gonna keep this one short because we're already at like 7 p.m. But yeah, reports of NVIDIA Corporation expressing its interest to acquire British chip design house ARM Ltd. have drawn mixed reactions from industry watchers and members of the public. NVIDIA, which is making a dent in the data center and AI markets through its highly competitive products, does not have a business synergy with ARM, which is known for designing low-power architectures for processors and graphics processing units. Yeah, RTX 30. I mean, well, what about NVIDIA Shield?
Oh yeah, that was a thing.
Is a thing. Is still a thing last I checked.
It never hit my country. It's my country's market.
True. But NVIDIA, they could pull this off. I mean, They probably have uses for ARM, I think. Naturally, this raises questions about NVIDIA's motives for acquiring ARM and leads to several problems that the company might face down the road if it goes forward with this deal. The first one is saying that NVIDIA's ARM acquisition they're saying that it will fundamentally rewire the company's operating model. Taking a bird's eye view of the entire affair, it is clear that the way in which NVIDIA and ARM generate revenues is structurally different. Former earns its keep by selling hardware products that it has designed itself to consumers and enterprises. The latter creates reference designs and final products that are licensed out to companies for a price. So while NVIDIA limits the use of its designs to its products only, ARM sells these designs to licensees. This naturally makes NVIDIA's margins lesser than ARM's, since the GPU maker is also responsible for putting the cost of manufacturing, with ARM's customers taking care of the cost themselves. Additionally, while both companies target the enterprise, data center, and automotive markets, only ARM is responsible for enabling the creation of products that power low-end notebooks, smartphones, tablets, and wearables, among others. Combining the two companies would lead to NVIDIA having to fundamentally recreate the way that it operates. If it buys ARM, then NVIDIA will have the capability to drive future of mobile computing and connectivity markets at a time when fifth-generation cellular networks are rolling out. Through this, the company will ensure that its decisions end up affecting the interests of a vast array of big and small tech companies spread all over the world. My thing is, when are we going to see NVIDIA graphics processors in mobile phones if they're going through with this? Are they actually going to do it? I don't know. I mean, what's NVIDIA Jetson again? NVIDIA to face multiple hurdles and difficult decisions before and after it acquires ARM. Naturally, such an affair has both negative and positive aspects. In this case, unless NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has a revolutionary plan on his mind, the former outweigh the latter. Acquiring ARM would be the first and foremost put NVIDIA not only at the center of tensing trade relations between the United States and China, but it will also make the deal subject of extensive regulatory scrutiny. Now that I can see becoming a little bit of an issue for them. Authorities in the UK will take note of an important company trying to make its way across the Atlantic, and those in China will also be worried about further sanctions that could cut off crucial access to ARM's IP, which is not only used by companies such as MediaTek for its smartphone processors, but also in supercomputers. Moving forward from regulatory concerns, the fact that ARM and NVIDIA are different operationally will not bode well for the post-acquisition cultural integration of the pair. Given the unconventional nature of the deal, employees at ARM are likely to resent working for a company whose products and business are different from theirs. This in turn could lead to turnover that will in turn affect was that supposed to be one sentence or two? In turn, that will affect the new entity's ability to operate efficiently after a period of major change. So long story short, they're saying that the two companies are extremely different and therefore it might not be a good idea. And not only are there internal hurdles to face, but there will also be external hurdles due to legal scrutiny and stuff like that. I mean, I can see that being a little bit of an issue, but NVIDIA is going to benefit in the long run, I think, if they play their cards right. I mean, they have products like NVIDIA Shield, Jetson, and other low-power products that they've put out over the years that would actually, I think, benefit from further integration with ARM. Not only that, but also, I mean, there could come a time when NVIDIA could start actually optimizing their graphics products for low-end devices, or should I say low-power devices, like smartphones and tablets, so we can actually start seeing NVIDIA graphics in smartphones and smartwatches and stuff like that. I mean, when was the last time NVIDIA graphics got used in a smartphone? I can't quite remember.
Interesting marketing, like I can already imagine.
I think NVIDIA graphics was used in the Asus Nexus 7 2012 edition, the first generation tablet. but it wasn't used in the next generation. Instead, Adreno graphics got used for the next generation 2013 tablet.
I'm not keeping up with this, but if NVIDIA becomes the normal graphics on tablet phones, I think that will be great. Yeah.
I think NVIDIA has the ability to, because they've been working on performance and efficiency of their graphics processors for years now. They have the ability to. It's just that they have to actually decide whether or not they're going to actually put their stuff into a smartphone or a tablet or anything like that. And the last devices that they did that for was mainly just in-house devices. I mean, in the past, we had a lot more NVIDIA-based devices coming out with like Denver cores and stuff like that, but I don't know if those really took off. But down here, it starts talking about other factors that could positively influence the interaction. Acquiring the British design house will increase NVIDIA's revenue stream. The benefits to NVIDIA from the acquisition are where the greatest potential for industry disruption post-acquisition lies. By buying ARM, NVIDIA will transition from a company that simply provides components for high-performance computing to a company that also provides an entire platform for these applications. Last I checked, NVIDIA was already moving towards the platform thing years ago, but just never, they couldn't quite ever break into it completely and fully. But I digress. Following the deal, should NVIDIA decide to bundle its products with ARM solutions, then users of the latter's licenses will be forced to either pay more to NVIDIA or switch to alternatives such as RISC-V, developed by University of California in Berkeley. NVIDIA will also add another revenue stream to its balance sheets, one which is not dependent on the cyclical nature of GPU revenues. This revenue stream will span across entire industries that range from smartphones to the Internet of Things and medical applications. And should NVIDIA decide to keep ARM intact post-acquisition, then the company will effectively have a finger in all of those pies. Which, I mean, makes sense, but doesn't NVIDIA already have like a data center thing? So I can understand now why I said cyclical, because like those things, like massive purchasing decisions, are done based on a cycle of how many years before a certain product gets retired and all that. Gaining access to a CPU license when ARM is starting to give x86-based platforms a run for their money would provide NVIDIA with an opportunity to pair its CUDA platform with ARM's CPUs. This in turn will provide those interested in such products with an excellent option that uses a strong compute platform with an IP that is only expected to increase performance with advances in semiconductor packaging such as chiplets. My question is, if they're going that far, ARM chips with NVIDIA Hopper anyway.
How can it go wrong?
Wait, what?
Yeah, like how can it go wrong? If it goes wrong, will just ARM just disappear?
Hopefully not, because ARM has they have a humongous sway on the industry right now. Besides that, remember how I mentioned that NVIDIA Hopper would be coming out like in a short while?
Yeah.
What if NVIDIA's Hopper is actually energy efficient enough to be used in mobile applications? And what if it happens to be used in an ARM product somewhere down the line? Of course, that is, once again, just speculation, not really worth much thought anyway. This in turn will provide those interested with us. Oh yeah, I already read through that. Such a move would require guaranteed support from customers to allow the post-acquisition NVIDIA to absorb the costs of integrating CUDA with ARM. However, if successful, then NVIDIA will have effectively permeated the ARM platform with its products, and as a result, vastly diversified both its revenue and target market. Yeah, I mean, that would pretty much expand the reach of its CUDA platform, making it so that more developers are actually likely to encounter and use CUDA. So I can definitely, if they pull this right, if they play their cards right, they will it will undoubtedly give NVIDIA a competitive edge. Didn't AMD though recently mention that they were actually gonna? I think Samsung mentioned that they might try to use AMD graphics in some of their mobile devices, didn't they? I know that's really off topic, but NVIDIA actually mentioned that recently. I mean, not NVIDIA, but Samsung, I think, mentioned that they might try to use AMD graphics recently in their mobile devices. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I'm being a quiet guest.
I'm seeing a lot of interesting stuff come out right now. Samsung Exynos plus AMD Radeon, ARM plus NVIDIA. This is gonna definitely be some interesting times. Are we gonna see like Exynos plus Radeon versus ARM plus NVIDIA?
Competition is like always they're always good thing. Which doesn't exist in my country, but yeah.
I kind of want to see how this goes. Samsung Exynos plus like AMD Radeon competing against NVIDIA plus ARM. That's going to be very interesting. A lot of people dunk on Exynos saying that's slower, but I mean, it's not. I don't think it's too bad if there's already a ton of people buying it. Like, it's obviously not. It's not bad enough where Samsung has stopped making Exynos. But yeah, so that's probably about all of the tech news that we can do for today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and pause the stream because it's probably been going on for far too long, right? But actually, while the stream is paused, I'm going to look up Vulture and where's OBS? Yes, we've been going on for 2 hours now. So we're just waiting on Favorite Dragon so we can talk about MageBending and then other important things.
2 hours. Yeah.
Indeed we have. Yeah. So I'll see if I can get Favorite Dragon back along with the other people. And then from there we'll try to do the second part of the live stream where we talk about MageBending and internal affairs. Aside from that, you guys stay tuned and we shall actually, is there a pause mode? Stop streaming. Oh, there's no way to pause the stream, is there?
I think you can only stop streams, but
you can pause recordings, can't you? Ah, they got us. Okay.
Oh, the service that's running? I don't.
No, I mean like with OBS, if I remember correctly, you can pause a recording, but for some reason you can't pause a stream. I mean, I'm not really going to complain. That just means I start an all new video. But
as for example, like people put a BRB scene or something and mute their mic, so that's how they pause streams. But we are using Restream, so if that has the same feature, you might as well use it to save bandwidth.
True, but if I stop the stream, that'll save even more bandwidth. Alright guys, we will be back with the second video and the conclusion of the entire thing. So stay tuned and we shall return.